Right, as promised, we are going over the Qin and Han dynasties. So to begin with, once again, just a little review I had set up for your in-class classmates. So, I won't know if you can answer these questions, but you better be able to. What was the first Chinese dynasty to leave written records? John Green tries to tell us the Shah do not exist. As I've stated, archaeologists have proven, yeah, they did. But they didn't leave us a written record. Who did? On what river did the first Chinese civilizations develop? What were the religious beliefs of the ancient Chinese? And how did the old dynasties end and new ones begin? And what is the type of decentralized political system that developed under the Zhou dynasty? Of course, the answers are Shang. It's the first with written record. They're the ones who took out the show. The Huanghe or Yellow Rivers were the first developments. Remember, all new civilizations grow along the rivers because you need that for food and trade. What were the religious beliefs? They worshiped their ancestors, Shangdi, though I've recently found out there is supposed to be a central god or two central ancestor gods that were the ancestors of the ancestors. You know, you still came from somebody. They ended with the mandate of heaven, and they had a feudal system under the Zhou dynasty. So, 1532 again, BC, starts the Shang dynasty. Then 1027 is the Zhou dynasty. Then we have an era of warring state feudalism that did last at least 500 years. So don't think the Zhou suddenly lasted that nice 800 year. It was only 300. Then we were stuck in this warring feudal system that the Zhou just started. But then one warlord emerges among the rest, and that would be Qin. And we have the Qin dynasty, for which we have named China in the West. They did call themselves something else at this point. And then in 202 BC, the Han dynasty begins, and they end in 220 AD/CE/ why are we even naming it? Because it's the era we're still under. And due to an argument in world history, I didn't know some of you did not know this, AD stands for Anno Domini. That is not after death. Anno Domini is literally the year of our Lord. Go on, you learn this one in Latin. Year of our Lord. CE just means common era. It is still the year of our Lord. It's just a system where some people do not like the fact that the counting system for the modern world starts with year 1, which is the birth of Christ. Sorry, Christians took over the Western world. This is what happened. We'll get into religion next unit and just their influences. So by the way, that includes also classic mythology. During the last 500 years, the Zhou dynasty regional rulers were constantly at war with each other, so it's not quite considered a dynasty. It is called the era of warring states, or the warring state period. One of the warring regional rulers, Qin, began to unite the regions by eliminating adversaries and defeating them outside invaders. He was only 13 when this began. You're all over 13. Why are you not, uniting with your enemies and taking them out and uniting a great army under you? Huh? Come on. What you doing with your life? Just kidding. So this begins the Qin dynasty, for which China is named. And he is known as Qin Shi Huangdi, which means the first emperor. So Qin Shi Huangdi, China might be named for him, but he's really not that loved in Chinese history, let me tell you. I just watched a nice video from a Chinese American, I guess she's still legally Chinese, who made it very clear this man's an evil warlord. But he did some important things. So, he implemented a philosophy of legalism, which is extremely harsh. Basically, like I say, they enslaved a lot of them, but apparently not everyone. What I did just find out today is one of their punishments under legalism, well, they had a system where a lot of their soldiers were also farmers during peacetime. Well, apparently, one of the punishments for, being convicted is you had to pay up some of your armor. So if you get called to war, you're going there unarmed. You're going there without any armor on. You're going to get yourself killed unless you can come up with some new armor. Just one of the things they did. Oh, yeah, but, I mentioned slaves. He liked the slaves. He enslaved quite a few peasants. So Shi Huangdi was an autocrat, which you should know from our types of government. That's an emperor, one person in charge. Auto, one. Self-rule, centered with one person. They forced nobles to live in a royal compound to prevent a takeover. And they seized their land and appointed administrations to govern, creating an official bureaucracy. So he did create he took the warring states and then reformed them into a government. He created a bureaucracy, but he rejected Confucianism, which was becoming a very popular religion, and burned books that conflicted with his own philosophy. He was a book burner. And he did order the murder of a Confucian scholars. Okay. When a dictatorial you're in trouble when the government starts coming after your scholars. Your government comes after the teachers, you got a problem. They start coming after all the scholars, you've got a big problem. He went after the scholars. You're going to see this again if we get to it, to the fall of the dynasties and the rise of the communist state in China. In the dictators, they're going after the scholars first again. Not a good thing. So, to end the invasion from the north, and really, to my understanding, there weren't that many invasions. They were just nomadic people coming in causing problems. But Qin Huangdi, ordered one of the most ambitious building projects in history, the Great Wall of China. It was built by peasants who didn't want to build it, forced labor, and slaves. Plenty of slaves. And going back to those who did get to play our little history versus fairy tale and nursery rhyme Kahoot. Yes, there are people buried in the wall. Some of the workers are buried directly in the wall because that's what you do when people fall in. They get buried in the walls. So this is a picture once again of the Great Wall of China. Ooh, on a side note, I also learned, so let's go back to the next slide. This used to, until the last 100 years, it was not a source of great pride. The wall was actually a symbol in China of their past oppression and overreaching bureaucracy. It's only recently they started really taking pride in this wall. Learned that from an actual Chinese woman today. So yesterday, the wall was built using forced labor. Many of the peasants died, once again, of exhaustion, and, yep, they're buried in the wall. So they didn't even bother burying, you just throw them in the wall. This does go back to our conversation where there's a lot of people in bridges. So the construction continued into the 17th century, and it's not a big still holes in it. And it is 3,700 miles long. Their other achievements include, my battery's dying, built highways which expanded trade, standardized currency, weights and measures, built irrigation systems. And to build these projects, he raised taxes. He's building a wall, and the peasants are paying for it. So when he dies, few people are sad. As I mentioned, even today, the Chinese people really don't like this guy. He had many enemies. His son ruled for 3 years, and then it's overthrown by the Han rulers. Why? Because he lost the mandate of heaven. So, Qin Shi Huangdi is buried in the compound, along with nearly 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers and horses. And here they are. And I will get back to you with the Han Dynasty in a bit.